Good morning, it's David Schlotthauer with a tropical update on Tropical Storm Bret and newly formed Tropical Depression 4 for Tuesday morning, June 22nd. As always, my thoughts in this video are mine alone, and making any decisions regarding Tropical Storm Bret and TD4, please consult the National Hurricane Center and your local officials for the best information for where you are. So here's a look at the zoomed out view on Tropical Depression 4 and Tropical Storm Bret as they are both moving towards the Lesser Antilles this morning. We're going to be first spending time on Tropical Storm Bret, and then we will be focusing the rest of the video on Tropical Depression number 4, since that has a near imminent threat to impact the northern Lesser Antilles within the next 4 to 5 days. So zooming in to Tropical Storm Bret, we can see, as we expected yesterday, that the system would become very lopsided. A lot of the deeper convection, mainly on the western or eastern side of the circulation. So we can see this really taking place. I mean, just recently too, we have lost a lot of the deepest convection, which means that the system is encountering a lot of dry air and a lot of the wind shear that models have been forecasting for quite some time. If we look at this even closer, if we just pause the kind of animation, we could even see semblance of the low-level circulation, which is over here, which means this system is really strongly sheared, and a lot of dry air is impacting. In fact, there's really not hardly anything here on the western side of the system, because we have a lot of dry air that is just being pulled in from the north and from the west around the system. So the ending result here is we have a strongly sheared system with shear that is approaching over 40 knots at the moment, because as we can play this through, let's kind of do that. We do have some cirrus filaments that are coming in out of the westerly direction, but the problem is we have the system moving towards that shear, towards the islands, and so even so the upper level flow is not particularly strong, we are ending up with shear that is generally over 30 knots, and that's going to really offset the vortex and the deepest convection, and we are expecting this to further decouple or further separate over the next day or so, and it is even possible that Bret is no longer a 70-mile-per-hour system. So when we do take a look here, when we take a look at the latest Air Force 305 mission that is flying through Bret right now, we can see that the winds are much lighter. In fact, there were winds near hurricane force last night. That has really dissipated in quite the hurry, because now we're not seeing very deep convection that would likely sustain those winds, and the pressure has been coming up a little bit. The latest estimated pressure by the aircraft is right around 1,005 and 6 millibars, prior to 995 millibars last night. So it's been coming up, and that means the system has been weakening. So now, here's a kind of zoomed out view on Bret, and we can see when we slow this down, pay attention to these clouds right over here. That is the westerly shear that I was just talking about that is plaguing the system with drier air that is already encroaching onto the system. When we take a look at the water vapor imagery here, I'm kind of zooming in a little bit. Pay attention to this dark tongue right in here, and also take note with what happens to the system. We have very deep convection early on, and then all of a sudden, poof, it really loses its fuel. All because of that drier air that has encroached, that is already on top of the system. And I knew that was going to happen because of the water vapor imagery. So therefore, the system is in a rapid weakening phase right now. And there is still hurricane watches issued for the time being until we get more data in from the National Hurricane Center. So when we take a look at our key messages for Tropical Storm Bret, Bret is forecast to move across the Lesser Antilles this evening and tonight as a tropical or a strong tropical storm. A hurricane watch and a tropical storm warning are in effect for St. Lucia, and a tropical storm warning is in effect for Martinique and Dominica. There is a risk of flooding and heavy rainfall, strong winds, and dangerous waves along the coast within the warning area. A tropical storm watch remains in effect for Barbados and St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Additional watches or warnings are possible for some islands in the Lesser Antilles later today. So just letting you all know that there is, please take this seriously until we get more information out. But this will be the last update on Tropical Storm Bret for this morning, and then we'll be starting to focus on Tropical Depression number 4, which could become our next named storm. So this is a look at the latest forecast of most likely arrival time of tropical storm force winds and the chances of those occurring. Right now, over portions of St. Lucia and the Grenadines, you have pretty much a 70 to 90% chance you will have tropical storm force winds by tonight. So just be aware of that. The winds are going to be on the increase rapidly as this system passes passes right over your area. But keep in mind, we're not looking at a lot of rain at first. A lot of the rain will follow behind the system where all this deep convection is being noted from. So when we go and take a look at the NHC track forecast, we can see that there are tropical storm warnings and hurricane watches out for St. Lucia, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, even for Dominica and Martinique. Dominica and Martinique under that tropical storm warning, and then Barbados and some of the islands down here to the south, you're under tropical storm watches. Winds are at 70 miles an hour, but I guarantee you right now, those winds will probably be decreased to 60 or even 50 miles an hour in the next advisory because we're seeing the decoupling and the aircraft no longer supports winds that would be 70 miles an hour. So now that we talked briefly, I know it was a quick update because again, the system is weakening. We're going to be spending a little bit more of our time on tropical storm or tropical depression number 4, which should become our next named storm very soon. Could be Cindy by tonight or by tomorrow. That would be the 4th or 3rd named storm, let alone because we had an unnamed tropical or subtropical storm in January. But yes, 3rd named storm in June is very ironic for this time of the year in the main development region. So here's a look at that imagery. Looks more organized today than it did yesterday. When you take a closer zoomed in view, yes, winds are definitely stronger with this. A closed circulation, definitely noted here with a burst of deep convection. Quite ironically, there is shear here that is out of the easterly direction. That's because when we look at the satellite imagery, we have the deepest convection that is weighted on the western side of the system with not much convection at all, and even some drier air that is infiltrating the system from the east. So yeah, that's pretty rare to see, let alone to see a sheared cyclone literally with easterly shear here, and then you got Tropical Storm Bret that has westerly shear on it. Ironically crazy, right? And they are kind of right next to each other. So when you take a look at the water vapor imagery, we do have a little bit of drier air that is impacting the system. In fact, the air is getting slightly drier in recent frames, which is why we're seeing some burstiness to the deep convection. Latest models do project that this will be able to intensify over marginally favorable environmental conditions, including above normal sea surface temperatures. That's the whole reason why we're here seeing these named storms this early in the season, is because we have a very, very active main development region in response to some very warm, near historically warm sea surface temperatures. So look at the GFS model for the 06Z run for this afternoon. Here is Tropical Storm Bret right here, approaching the islands. Here is Tropical Depression number 4. And the general steering future, at least in the lower levels, is generally this ridge that is to the north at the lower levels of the atmosphere. But when we look at the upper levels, we have a nice looking outflow, a little bit of easterly shear that I talked about in the satellite imagery. But this is going to be going generally this way over time. So it's going to find itself in a better environment. So as we go forward here, not there, we can see that the system is going to be moving in a belt of lighter wind in the 200 millibar layer. And the steering flow generally is with this ridge that is off towards the northeast of the system. We have another ridge that is off to the northwest. There's a little bit of a break in the ridge here in the subtropical in the next 60 hours. So if we kind of go forward, system's going to find itself in the weakness of that subtropical ridge. Not only that, we do have a little weak trough that is also going to be interjecting into the system too, which will also lead to an unfavorable environment. So now we have shear. Before, just a few days prior, we don't have a lot of flow to worry about. In fact, you can see that trough right in here, kind of pinched off. That's what we call a tut. And these systems, these tuts help to really tear apart systems. They encroach drier air into the inner core, and they kind of dismantle systems. So you're going to find a brief period here in the next 48 to 60 hours that the shear is light, and then it picks up out of the southwesterly direction. By the time we go to day 5, system is going to find itself still in that shear, being steered also by this subtropical ridge that is to the north. But that ridge is also kind of trying to build in and move unison with the system. So we're going to find the system going to be continually to move off towards the west-northwest. Now, interestingly enough, once we get out to day 5, we have a trough that is going to be approaching from the west. As you can see here, we've got the ridge that is well established. Oops, not that. So we've got the ridge right here. And what you're going to find once that trough approaches, the system might find itself in lighter shear conditions, more upper ocean heat content, and more moisture to strengthen in. So at the end of the forecast here, we'll note or take note that the system might make a run for hurricane status or tropical storm status at least, might even get a little stronger than that. So this could be one of those systems that we will have to watch as it gets really close to Bermuda. Yes, we do have viewers that do watch for Bermuda here, but if we back it up one more time, you can see that this does miss the islands. That's good, but it could also hit someone else. That could be Bermuda down the line. So looking at the moisture plot, we can see tropical depression number 4 does get impacted with some drier air. We have a little bit of decrease in relative humidities here. And when we go forward, the shear that I talked about is going to help to interject some of that moisture and shear in. You can see it right in here, kind of tries to get decoupled. But the magical thing with this is it's going to try to align itself again under that same moisture bubble. And it's going to find itself in a pretty good environment here to strengthen in before it becomes more extratropical once it gets further north. Again, this is really, really early, folks, to see 3 named storms in July, let alone already in the main development region. Actually, 2 named storms. We had Arlene in the Gulf of Mexico, but 2 named storms literally within 2 weeks is very ironically rare. And this usually means we get a very busy season ahead for July, with more of these futures coming off of Africa, taking the advantage of the warmer than normal sea surface temperatures. So when we zoom in here on Tropical Depression 4 on our model track guidance, we can see that most of the models are tightly clustered. So we have pretty good confidence today that the system will miss the islands, but you could have indirect impacts, such as maybe some outflow banding futures that could bring in some rainfall, some gusty winds across our area, maybe some more high surf across some of the islands here. But it looks like now you will have indirect impacts from Tropical Depression number 4. Now, how strong could Depression number 4 get? Right now, it is likely to get its next name, which would be Cindy on our list of named storms. Then it gradually weakens a little bit, and then there might be some more intensification towards the end of the forecast. Based on a lot of the data that I've collected, my intensity forecast has been raised significantly and is now in the upper end of the guidance and indicates that this could become a strong tropical storm within the next 3 to 4 or within the next 2 to 3 days as it enters a very favorable environment. So looking at the zoomed out view of satellite imagery that we did talk about Tropical Storm Bret and Tropical Depression number 4. As always, please make sure you have your hurricane and tropical weather plan in place if you're on the islands. Once again, this will be the last update on Tropical Storm Bret since it's going to literally be arriving on those islands in the next 2 to 4 hours. And I won't have time to talk about that. But instead, we will be talking about Tropical Storm number 4, or Tropical Depression number 4, becoming Tropical Storm Cindy this afternoon, if necessary. Otherwise, I hope you all have a rest of your day, or I hope you all have a fantastic rest of your Thursday. As always, my thoughts in this video are mine alone. And making predictions, please consult the National Hurricane Center for the latest information. As always, thank you all for watching, and I'll be back with you likely with another tropical update this afternoon, followed by more updates tomorrow.